want to bring in Senator Bob Menendez, the ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, to assess what's going on. We're showing Senator some of these live pictures coming in right now, this class photo. What do you think about the president's news today? He's saying the NATO allies shouldn't just be spending 2% of their GDP on defense. They need to spend 4% of their GDP on defense. What's your reaction?
Well, first of all, the United States doesn't even spend 4% of GDP on defense. So I think it's just a part of his parlor game of what he thinks is a way to get NATO to spend more money. But, you know, what the president mistakenly says is that, first of all, there's no NATO ally that's in arrears. Everybody is paying what they should be paying at this point. The 2% goal is supposed to be accomplished by 2024. 8 countries are already will have accomplished it this year. So no one's in arrears, and they are all working towards that. And they started spending more before President Trump came along, when they saw the invasion of Crimea by Russia. So the bottom line is, what strikes me, Wolf, as someone who has met with many of the foreign ministers of these countries and others, is that the president gives the back of the hand to some of our closest, longest allies and embraces some of the most authoritarian figures in the world when he says that his visit with Putin will be the easiest meeting he has. Someone who's a thug and trying to undermine American democracy, that shouldn't be an easy meeting, nor should it be chummy.
Why do you think the Senate, your colleagues, passed a resolution, a non-binding resolution yesterday, 97-2 on the Senate floor, supporting NATO right now? And just moments ago, the Senate passed another non-binding resolution, 88-11, saying before the president cites national security concerns for imposing tariffs against various nations, and he did so against Canada and Mexico recently, the Senate felt it was necessary to pass this kind of resolution, both seemingly rebuking what the president is doing.
Well, there's no doubt it's a rebuke, and it's an effort, particularly as it relates to our NATO allies, to let them know that the president's harangue against them is not the view of the Congress of the United States as a representative of the American people. It is critically important. It's why this Congress, when it passed CATSA, the Countering Americans' Adversaries Through Sanctions Act, didn't provide for waivers in sanctions, for example, against Russia. It made them mandatory, and only by coming back to Congress can they be undone, because they were worried about what President Trump would do vis-a-vis Putin and Russia. So it's a very strong statement. Today, as a matter of fact, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee met and passed out, I think, 20-1, a very strong resolution on our support for NATO, and it being a pillar. And what's crazy, Wolf, is I just saw a tweet by Secretary Pompeo. It says, NATO is the most successful alliance in history, and he goes on to say, weakness provokes, strength and cohesion protects. This remains our bedrock belief. I just wish the President of the United States could say that.
Well, he did at the same time that Pompeo was tweeting, the president was tweeting. I'll read to you the tweet just moments ago, and I'll get your reaction, Senator. And maybe we'll put it up on the screen if we have it. What good is NATO, the president writes, if Germany is paying Russia billions of dollars for gas and energy? Why are there, misspelled there, only 5 of 29 countries that have met their commitment? The U.S. is paying for Europe's protection, then loses billions on trade, must pay 2% of GDP immediately, not by 2025. That's what the president just tweeted.
Well, here again, first of all, Germany is one of our strongest allies in our sanctions against Russia. They have been part of leading the unity of the European Union. As you know, Wolf, the European Union works by unanimity. That's hard to get every country to absolutely agree. Germany has been a stalwart in keeping the sanctions against Russia for annexing Crimea, invading Ukraine, for undermining our democracies through their cyber attacks and trolls. And so they're one of our strongest allies. And I think the president simply just forgets that in the 73-year history of NATO, they were there after World War II, they helped us win the Cold War. They ultimately, the only time that NATO has invoked that provision that talks about mutual self-defense among its members has been on behalf of the United States when we were tragically hit on September 11th. And for 17 years, NATO's allies and their sons and daughters have fought alongside our sons and daughters, many of them losing their lives. I think the president forgets all of that.
What's your biggest concern, Senator, about the upcoming summit with Vladimir Putin that the president will have in Helsinki, and that's going to take place on Monday?
Well, my biggest concerns is Putin is KGB. He has a whole dossier, a whole sense of what buttons to push with the president. The president doesn't believe in that type of preparation. When he says that this will be the easiest meeting, when he talks about Russia as someone who is a competitor, Russia's not a competitor. They're an adversary. From my view, they're a foe. Anyone who tries to undermine our democracy, who in essence created a 21st century attack through their cyber attacks against our democracy, is a foe. And so when you go into a meeting and you think of somebody as a competitor, that's just about how are we going to strike a deal. I'm worried about what he's going to do in Syria. I'm worried about him willing to give up on sanctions against Russia. I am really concerned about how the president will unfold, and I hope he doesn't get to meet alone with Putin, because I think that would be enormously dangerous.
As they'd say, they will start the sessions. First of the sessions will be one-on-one with only interpreters. Yesterday the president was asked if Putin is a friend or foe. He refused to say friend or foe. He said he's as you point out, he's a competitor of the United States. Senator Menendez, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.